We continue our roundtable discussion now with Dr. Derrell Peel. Derrell, let's look back at the livestock markets in 2021 and some of the things that made big news and some of the pricing trends that you observed.
Yeah, you bet. 2021 started with some carryover impacts from 2020, pretty direct impacts, particularly in the fed cattle market. So the dynamics in 2020 created a bit of a backlog of fed cattle that we brought into 2021. And when you combine that with the fact that the packing industry has really been living close to the knife edge, if you will, in terms of the balance between the supply of fed cattle and the capacity, it took much of the year, about 10 months of the year, to sort of work through that backlog. So we spent a lot of time with that market kind of holding everything else back, if you will. Fed cattle prices kind of, moved slowly higher, but they really were just pretty stagnant for much of the year. The feeder cattle markets, had more optimism built in them and started to reflect that as much as they could through the year. But they were really waiting for the fed cattle market to kind of get in line and let them go for that. Other things that we've dealt with this last year, obviously drought has been a big issue in the cattle industry. And so we did see elevated beef cow slaughter through the year. We know that that's added to cow herd liquidation. It's bringing numbers down. The cow herd actually peaked in 2019, so we've been getting a little bit smaller for a couple of years, but we added to that with the additional slaughter that we saw in 2021. And so we've had that, and partly because of the drought, we've seen significant increases in hay prices, particularly in those drought areas. In general, hay prices are a little bit higher, but obviously hay markets are pretty regional. So some parts of the country had pretty adequate supplies and not too much change in price. Some of those drought areas saw prices 75 to 100% higher on a year-over-year basis as we move through the year. The feed grain prices have been higher. So feedlots in particular are experiencing sharply higher cost of gain through 2021. In fact, by October, we had cost of gain in the feedlots reported at about 40 to 50% higher year over year. So that's something that will carry forward, from this point on is dealing with those higher feed prices. Beef demand has been strong. Exports were strong in 2021. There was a lot of change from the beginning to the end of the year.
Let's take a look now that we're at January 1st and everyone's kind of optimistic, of course, at the first part of the year. Are we seeing optimism at this stage?
Yeah, again, we ended 2021 on a very strong note with the cattle markets, with the fed cattle market finally kind of turning the corner late in the year. So the stars kind of aligned for all of the segments to sort of get on board. And so we're really starting to see things happen. Again, beef demand was strong through the year. We're carrying that into the new year. Exports actually set a record in 2021, exceeding 2018 was the previous record in terms of the quantity of beef exports. They'll probably drop a little bit in 2022, but we're ending the year on a very strong note from a demand standpoint. We're also seeing sort of the effects of these tightening cattle and beef supplies as we go forward. We had all-time record beef production in 2021 as a result of kind of the way the timing has worked out on these peak feedlot numbers in the early part of the year.
So as we look at the 2022 as a whole and some of the things that you and your fellow analysts are keeping an eye on, what do you want to pass along to Oklahoma producers?
Well, again, we're really in a position to sort of capitalize on the optimism that's been building in the industry. So, we're coming into the year with prices across the board, feeder cattle prices, whether it's calves or big feeder cattle or fed cattle prices sharply higher on a year-over-year basis, and we expect that to continue. So we're looking for higher average prices in 2022. There's little doubt that the revenue side of the equation is going to look better in 2022. There are some challenges on the cost side of things. So profitability will depend really on cost management. Again, hay prices, feed and supplement prices in general. In some places, depending on the type of forage base that we're using, fertilizer and other input prices will also be important. So cost management is probably going to be the place where producers really need to put their emphasis in 2022. But in general, we've got a lot of optimism coming in the market from both a demand as well as tighter supplies helping support these markets.
Well, we'll take the optimism. So
absolutely.
Thank you very much for keeping us all informed on SUNUP, and of course, Happy New Year to you.
Happy New Year to you and to all producers in Oklahoma.
Okay, we'll see you again soon, Derrell. Thanks a lot.